Hello, this is Sam Simon, also known as Dementia Man, for my blog for the week of October 26th. And that means it's the last week of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Now, I typically blog about my journey with um, dementia, and my play is called Dementia Man, An Existential Journey. But I want to spend this last week of October and the Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I'm going to give one resource, and I'm going to read from the book. I have my copy with me. You can see it. There it is. Um, and I'm going to read an entry piece to try to give you a sense of the caregiver. I call it love partner. And the person you love most in this world, if you have the chance to hold them as they take their last breath, what that provoked in me and what I was able to imagine. And I hope if you can listen to it, particular if you're someone who has or is in the process of being with someone you love as they are quite ill, that you can find the gift in that opportunity and imagine what I will help you imagine. But first, I want to give a resource. So Susan was diagnosed with she was diagnosed with breast cancer in around 2000. Uh, the doctors found a lump and then thought they found a post-double mastectomy lump. They pulled me over and said, Sam, get ready. She's not going to make it. And the craziest thing in the world was they were so sure that she was going to not live. During her treatment, it turns out this was in 2000. I was invited to attend the Democratic Convention in LA. We live in the Washington, D.C. area. And they were invited to some special events. And the doctor said, oh, you can take her. You can take her. She's in the middle of chemotherapy. You can take her. All you have to do is give her a shot in her stomach every day. And we'll arrange for her to be seen at Cedar Sinai in LA once during the week you're there. Crazy us, we did that. Now, looking back about it, that was insane. And Susan is a survivor. Now, 25 years later, she's doing quite well. That doesn't mean I don't still listen and wonder, is it back? Technically, they say if you survive 5 years with no recurrence, that you're sort of cured. Anything else will be new. Typically, it can be and indeed in my mother, who did pass from breast cancer, it was in her brain, or it can be again in the stomach, is another frequent place. And I can still, whenever Susan complains of a headache or a stomach ache, wonder for a brief second, is it back? But I also want to, what I think are is was an existential, also ecstatic moment around this for me in getting ready in the time and what I call post-traumatic spiritual disorder, what I imagined and understood and yet couldn't fully at first put down in words and understand. I was I was doing theater and I was encouraged to write about it, and that helped me find that out. So first, though, I'm gonna get to that. I don't want to be too long because I know everybody doesn't have a ton of time to watch all these things. I want to share my screen and share. There we are, a resource, and this is from Cleveland Clinic, and it's their Fourth Angel mentoring program. You can see a phone number, an email, and request to become a mentor. I am and became a mentor. I don't hear from them very often now because I'm in the middle of this other existential journey. Um, but I have been a mentor for other men whose wives were very, very sick with breast cancer. And I could I could not so much talk to them, I could listen to them. I could hear and be empathetic to that. So if you or anyone you know, whether it's breast cancer or any other cancer, are the care partner, caregiver, love partner, here's a resource. Call, request, or if you had the experience, be generous and yourself become a mentor. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Give you another second, write it down. There you go. And now I have a copy of my book, my copy of, can you see it there? Well, there we go. My book. You can see it behind me. It took me almost 9 years to write this book. By the way, the book of Dementia Man, about my experience with um, early stage Alzheimer's is going to be coming out in a few weeks, so you'll hear about that soon. But for right now, what was the so-called dance? Why did I call it that? This is an introductory 3 pages from the book. It'll take maybe, I don't know, 5, 10 minutes for me to read it. But I want to share it. I hope you'll listen to it. I hope you maybe close your eyes and listen to it. And put yourself in the place if you haven't done it before. Remember those moments. If you're in it now, listen. Or just imagine being with someone you love at this existential moment. So here we go. The actual dance. There is a dance that one day each and every one of us will dance. The dance takes place in a grand ballroom with a fabulous orchestra. The orchestra, I think, plays whatever song the dancers themselves want to hear. Even though I have been to dozens of these events and have the routine down pat, even so, I can't recall a single tune ever played by one of these orchestras. It might even be true that only the dancers themselves recognize the song that the orchestra is playing. You see, you can attend one of these events as a guest of the dancers, or you might just end up in the gallery watching as someone you know or love is dancing. You don't get to dance yourself, though, until either it is your turn or you are invited to be the dance partner of someone you love. When it is my turn, I want to dance with the person I love most in this world. If it is her turn first, I want to be her dance partner, and I want us to dance a waltz, a slow, elegant, flowing, beautiful waltz. We stand in perfect form, bodies touching, and at the first note of our favorite song, we begin the ultimate journey through space and time as she dissolves into eternity. Now, this dance is no small production, mind you, and the ballroom is no ordinary ballroom. It has vaulted ceilings with a beautiful, long, highly polished blonde wood dance floor. Brilliant spotlights overhead create a precise bubble of light over that dance floor. A platform off to the side is large enough to hold a good-sized orchestra, 40 or 50 or even more musicians. The spotlights are so precisely focused on just the dance floor that the floor itself seems to disappear into the blackness of the ballroom. Standing in the center of the dance floor, looking off into the darkness of the ballroom, the dancers can just make out the silhouettes of people, of all the people they have ever met, ever known, and have ever loved in their entire lives, ready to watch the couple dance the actual dance. And even though there are billions of people on this earth, and even though there must be hundreds of thousands of these rituals every day, each dance is unique, designed, if you will, for the individual dancers. However, the orchestra doesn't even exist until it is needed. And as it is needed, somehow the musicians know the orchestra begins to form as each musician, instruments in hand, appear waiting to be called into a specific ballroom. The musicians then enter the ballroom to which they are called, winding their way through the shadowy figures of a lifetime surrounding the dance floor. One by one, they appear, suddenly popping out of the darkness into the dazzling lights, walking slowly across the dance floor, mounting the orchestral platform. A violin, a cello, a bass, a clarinet, a flute, followed by a piccolo, then another clarinet, even a large harp. On and on until all the musicians are seated. They open their cases and take out their instruments in what seems like slow motion. And then the room is filled with the familiar cacophony of an orchestra warming up before a performance. At any point in this ritual, it is not too late. The end is not yet determined. The orchestra, even in the middle of a warm-up, can suddenly stop. The musicians return their instruments to their cases and exit the ballroom. A false alarm. If it is not a false alarm, then the orchestra finishes its warm-up and it begins to play that song that the dancers themselves wanted to hear, which only they recognize. The actual dance begins. It can be wonderful and intimate and beautiful. As the breathing slows and becomes shallow, the sound builds and the dance intensifies. Breathing slows and softens even more, and the dance becomes more intense and even more intense, and then even more intense, and then it stops. The dance ends. The music ends. It is as if the world itself has ended. The musicians pack up their instruments and dissolve into the darkness of the ballroom, disappearing until they are needed somewhere else. The ballroom sits achingly, intolerably empty, silence, almost in black and white, hollow. Amen. That's how that book starts. That is what happened to me. Called anticipatory grief. Of course, it is different for everyone, but that was an ecstatic moment. So I wish everyone, whether the person with breast cancer, and by the way, there are men who get breast cancer too, and their care partners, love partners, a recovery. I hope if in your journey an orchestra is formed, that it will be a false alarm. It was for Susan. I once was told, by the way, I was performing and got to meet the chief psychiatrist, Dana Farber, for the breast cancer oncology department there. And we were meeting and talking. I even, in her tiny little office, did a showcase version, 20 minutes of this play. But she said, Sam, got to know something. You can never know what it would be like to lose Susan until it happens. And I don't think I ever thought that, but it was a strong reminder that would be an arrogance in that. I only know what it was like to come up to the abyss, to be that far away from doing what I thought I couldn't possibly do. Hold Susan, now my wife of 59 years, in her arms as she took her last breath. So I hope your breast cancer journeys, there's newer medicine today and longer survival rates, is one of great care for each other, love for each other, and a full recovery, and being help to others going through the journey as well. So thank you. And then again, I am Dementia Man, and please come back and um, keep listening to our podcast here.